going for the second session. So this time we're going to be talking about a lot of different topics, kind of all rolled into one session. We're going to be jumping around a lot. Feedback loops, which we mentioned in the last session. What's the thermoregulation? Yeah, body temperature, right? Regulating body temperature. We're going to talk a little bit about enzymes. We're going to talk about feedback inhibition. And we'll kind of see that all these things are tied together. They're not randomly stuck together. They're in the same session for a reason. Really, the main theme of this session is feedback loops. All these have something to do with feedback loops. So first of all, some important terms that you need to know definitions for. Homeostasis. You've got a complicated definition up there, but essentially, what does it mean? Yeah, regulating something in your body and keeping it nearly constant. Keeping something stable. There's a list of things up here that your body tends to regulate. Temperature, your blood glucose levels, your blood calcium levels, heart rates, blood pressure. All those things need to be regulated within some pretty narrow boundaries. And if they're not, bad things happen. So we've got negative feedback. Again, pretty complicated definition. But essentially a negative feedback loop's job is to always do what?
Decrease.
Push something back toward what? The set point, where it's supposed to be. We'll see that negative feedback loops are used in your body for all kinds of things. Thermoregulation, maintaining blood glucose levels, maintaining blood calcium levels. We'll talk about some other examples. Positive feedback loops are a whole different animal. What's the purpose of a positive feedback loop?
To increase the risk.
Yeah. To make something big happen how? Fast. Are positive feedback loops about moving back towards a set point? They're about moving which way? Away from a set point. Making something big happen fast. Some good examples in your body of positive feedback loop are milk production and release in like a nursing mother. Childbirth, the actual act of the child being born. And blood clotting. Those are the three you tend to see on AP exams. Also the process of fruit ripening in plants is a positive feedback loop. We'll talk about that one in a minute too. So, got a first question here early. Go ahead and find the first question from this session. Go ahead and try to answer that. Take about 20, 30 seconds. Try to answer question one.
What page is that?
It's on page 18.
What page is it on?
Question 1's on 18.
Question 18 is the page you're looking for. Question 18. Page 18. Question 1 on page 18. All right, what do you guys think of this one? A lot of solids. What do you think? Wow. Well, speak up. I think the right answer might be D. It's a feedback loop. It's a negative feedback loop. So let's just draw it out up here on the board. So thyroxine is made by the thyroid gland, right? But What gland helps to control the other glands in your body? What gland is sort of the boss of the other gland? The pituitary. And what's its boss? Hypothalamus, right? Let's just look at the pituitary part of this right now. All right, so this question says, thyroxine is the hormone made by the thyroid that stimulates metabolism, it speeds it up. It says that there's low levels of thyroxine. All right, the pituitary, think of it like a boss. Boss is always monitoring what the workers are doing, all right? So the boss is always measuring, did this guy make what he was supposed to make? Well, in this case, what can we say about this guy's work? He didn't do enough, right? Because there's not enough of this stuff floating around. It's low. So what should the boss do when the worker is not doing what he's supposed to do? Give him a good chewing, right? Tell him to get to work. Spit out an order. And in this case, what's the order? Yeah, but what's the actual chemical order from the question? What's the signal that the pituitary is sending to the thyroid to tell it to get to work? TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, and that says, hey, get to work. Yes, sir. And he gets to work and he makes more of this. Well, the pituitary is watching it, monitoring it. That's what feedback means, right? You're monitoring what happens. So what happens to these levels? They go up. They get to some homeostatic level. What does that tell the pituitary? Stop making this. What does that tell the thyroid? I can take a break and I don't have to make any more of that at this point. That's how negative feedback loops work. So D looks like a good answer on that. So negative feedback loops have usually some parts that are almost always going to be there. First of all, there's some kind of stimulus. Something that causes the variable to move away from the set point. It causes something to get either too high or too low. That's the stimulus. There's a receptor. Something that picks up that change. There's a control center. And in most cases, what's the control center going to be in your body? What part of the brain? That deals with hormone distribution. Hypothalamus. Usually the control center is going to be the hypothalamus. When you think about negative feedback loops and homeostasis, I want you to go back to the hypothalamus. Because it's usually involved. It's usually the brain behind the whole situation. Then you've got an effector. An effector is some kind of structure that causes a change. It makes something happen. It makes a response happen. So those are our 5 main parts of the feedback loop. Stimulus, receptor, control center, effector, and response. So let's look at an example. Let's talk about thermoregulation for a minute. So let's say that you start to get cold. You go outside, you start to get cold. Your body temperature starts to drop. That's the stimulus, the drop in body temperature. The change away from the set point. You've got receptors. Where do you pick up body temperature changes at? Where are your temperature receptors mostly at? Your skin. So the skin receptors pick up a change in temperature. So the stimulus is the drop in body temperature. The receptors are the receptors in your skin. They send messages to your brain, to your control center, to your hypothalamus. That's your control center. It's then going to send out a signal. It's going to send out a signal to an effector. In this case, the effector is the skeletal muscles. What does the hypothalamus tell the skeletal muscles to do? Shiver, vibrate, create friction. So the response in this case is to contract, to shiver, to generate heat. And where's that response always going to take you? Back to the set point. It takes the seesaw about. Look at it from the other direction. Let's say you've been out running or something and you got hot. So your body temperature rises. Stimulus. Receptors in your skin and the brain pick up those changes in body temperature. They send messages to the hypothalamus, the control center. It then sends out messages to effectors, in this case the sweat glands, telling them to make and release sweat to the skin. The sweat absorbs heat and eventually does what? After it absorbs enough heat, what does sweat do? It evaporates. And when it leaves your skin, what does it take with it?
Heat.
Heat. It's called evaporative cooling, right? That's how sweat works, evaporative cooling. So the response is the evaporation of the sweat and the drop in body temperature pushes you back where? The balance. Again, notice that figure 8 shape, right? You've got 2 loops, both loops pushing you back toward the set point. Does that make sense? All right, so let's look at question 2. Go ahead and take a stab at question 2. We may have to talk about a few things to help you out on this one, but I want you to try it first. Question 2. What do you guys think on question 2?
Hold on.
Okay, you might call out an C looks good, right? Because the goose is bird. What kind of animal is bird? Not a mammal. What are mammals and birds? What do we have in common? We're endotherm. We're going to come back to that in a second. Actually, let's go and talk about that. So let's talk about endotherms. What's the opposite of an endotherm? Ectotherm, right? So we just got through saying the examples of endotherms are mammals, birds, and a few what? What else is an endotherm other than a mammal or a bird? There's a handful of fish. Now if somebody asks you, are fish endotherms or ectotherms? I want you to say ectotherms. There's a couple of exceptions to the rule. There's a couple of fish that are endotherms. What does it mean to be an endotherm? What does endo mean? Inside, and therm means heat. So we're generating heat in order to do what? Maintain a constant internal temperature, right? I like a term better than endotherm. I want you to think of endotherms as thermo, what? That's another name for endotherms. Thermoregulators, okay? We maintain a constant body temperature. Thermoregulators. On the other hand, most other types of life are ectotherms. Ecto means outside, right? Instead of ectotherms, though, I like to call them thermoconformers. What does conform mean? If you conform to the rules of society, what does that mean? You do what they say. You do them, right? You follow them. Well, what are thermoconformers following? The temperature of the environment, temperature outside. So their internal temperature is the same or close to the same as the temperature outside. So insects are ectotherms. Most fish, amphibians, reptiles, we can go on and on. Invertebrates in general, ectotherms. There's some advantages and disadvantages of being either one of these. What's a big advantage of being an endotherm? What do mammals and birds have over other animals? What's an advantage? Because we control our internal temperature, what does that mean? Yeah, we can live pretty much anywhere we want to live, right? You find mammals and birds in the Arctic, you find them in deserts, and everywhere in between. And we can be active pretty much any season of the year or any time of the day. That's the big advantage of being an endotherm. What's a disadvantage though? high metabolic rate, which means what? You better eat, and you better eat a lot, and you better eat often. And if you don't, what happens? You die, right? So the disadvantage, because we're generating body heat by metabolism, we gotta have a lot of food. That's the big disadvantage. On the other hand, ectotherms, what's their advantage? They're getting their heat from outside, so they don't have to what? They don't have to eat a lot. An alligator might eat a couple, 3 or 4 times a year. Now, it might be eating something huge, like a deer, okay? But it doesn't have to eat very often. Snakes, we don't have to feed them every day, right? They don't have to eat that often. What's the disadvantage of being an ectotherm? Yeah, you're limited about where you can live, right? Or at least when you can be active. Are you going to find snakes in Antarctica? No. Are you going to find snakes in a desert? Maybe. But when might you find the snakes? Yeah, when it's cooler, right? You're not going to find them out in the middle of the day, but you might find them out at night. Okay? So they're limited in terms of where they can live or when they can be active. All right, let's move along. So, got another question here. Go ahead and try question 3. All right, what are we looking at here on question 3? B looks good, right? Endotherms generate extra body heat by doing what? Well, we may shiver, but either way, shivering is going to make our body do what faster? Yeah, heat up by doing what? How are we generating the heat in the first place?
Creating friction.
We're doing more of what?
Moving. Breathing.
Why are we breathing in the first place? So we can do what?
Live.
Why do we need the oxygen in the first place? What do we need oxygen for? What one thing do we need O2 for in your body? Cellular respiration. Now remember, in cellular respiration, you guys haven't done cell respiration. Have you done cell
We have
respiration
not. I have not.
yet? Cell respiration is essentially a combustion reaction. What does combustion mean? You combust something, what are you doing to it? You're burning it. Okay? When you do cell respiration, essentially your body is burning sugar. What does burning release? Heat. Right? So if we need to heat up, as endotherms, we do respiration faster. Now on the other hand, let's say it gets cold. If you go outside and it's really cold, what's going to happen to your rate of respiration?
You're going to breathe.
It's going to speed up to generate more body heat, right? But if you were a snake and you went outside on a really cold morning, you're an ectotherm. What happens to your rate of respiration? It slows down because your body temperature drops. And what happens to the speed of all the enzymes and stuff moving around in your body? It's slow, right? So B looks good. We have to speed up respiration to generate more heat if we want to maintain what? A constant high body temperature. Thermoregulators do that. Ectotherms don't. All right, so let's make sure we covered all this. So ectotherms are organisms whose body temperatures vary with the external environment. I want you to think of them as thermoconformers. Most people just call them cold-blooded. Cold-blooded is probably not the term you want to use. Ectotherm, thermoconformers. As the external temperature drops, their body temperature drops, their metabolic activity decreases. Ectotherms are fish, reptiles, amphibians, insects, all invertebrates. we talked about the advantages and disadvantages. How that an advantage of being an ectotherm is you don't need as much energy. You don't have to eat as much. The disadvantage is where you live and when you can be active, those things are limited. Endotherms, we call them thermoregulators. And when the temperature changes outside, that has little effect on your internal body temperature because your body is going to do something to keep the temperature inside constant. Endotherms are birds and mammals and a few fish. The advantage again is that you can live pretty much anywhere and be active pretty much any time. The disadvantage is you better have a constant big supply of food to generate that. All right, so look at question 4. This will may confuse you a bit, but take a stab at it. Make sure you read the question closely on this one, because it's probably a little tricky. Probably something you have to talk about. This is switching to the answer to the following hypothesis. Your question 4 may be missing the first few sentences because they were in the previous question. It's the same question as my question 4. What do you guys say on this one? Okay, or D? Like anything else? This is probably something you haven't talked about yet. I wouldn't imagine, right? Best answer here is A. Now, let's think about that for a second. Let's look at this diagram. So notice this is basal metabolic rate on the y-axis, so the rate of metabolism on the y, and the mass of mammals on the x. You want to notice the pattern is. Smaller means what? Slower. Shrew is a little bitty tiny bit, right? Harvest mouse, tiny. Kangaroo mouse, tiny. Elephant, huge. So the smaller the animal, the higher its rate of metabolism per cell. Wow. We're not saying that a shrew does more cell respiration than an elephant, right? That's not what we're saying. We're saying a shrew does more respiration per what? Per cell than an elephant does. An elephant has a lot more cells than a shrew, right? How come? Let's go back to cells. Did you guys do the little Jello lab when you're talking about cells with the phenolphthalein when it changed colors? Yeah? You guys did that lab?
Cell size.
Cell size lab. You guys did that. What kind of cells were best at moving things in and out? Small. How come? What kind of, what do they have? Tell me more. Yeah, what about it? In a small cell, the surface area to volume ratio is what? Bigger than it is in a larger cell. Small cells have a higher surface area to volume ratio than bigger cells do. Well, think of that now on an organism level. Not thinking about a cell, think of an organism. This thing is huge. What kind of surface area to volume ratio does an elephant have? More volume compared to surface area. So it has a lower surface area to volume ratio. A shrew is like a tiny cell. It's got a high surface area compared to volume ratio. Well, these are endotherms. Why is that important? What are endotherms good at moving around and they might not want to be if they're small? There's a lot of surface area. There's a lot of ways for what to get out. Heat. Okay? So a shrew has a high surface area to volume ratio. That means it's constantly losing huge amounts of heat. As an endotherm, that means if it's losing a lot of heat, it also better be doing what? It better be making a whole lot of heat. And how do we make heat? By doing cell respiration, by doing metabolism. So because it's losing all this heat, it has to replace it by doing more respiration. An elephant, on the other hand, most of an elephant is inside, right? It's got a lot of volume, not as much surface area, which means it's good at doing what? Or maybe we all said this way, it's not so good at doing what? Losing heat. So it keeps heat in. And because it's keeping heat in, it doesn't have to do what? It doesn't have to make as much heat. And therefore it can have a lower rate of metabolism. So because of the surface area to volume ratio situation, small mammals or small birds are always going to have a higher rate of respiration than big ones. That's always the case. Let's back it up. One other thing that we ought to mention from this slide, in general, endotherms, like birds and mammals, are always going to have a higher rate of metabolism than a similarly sized ectotherm. There's a lab that some schools do where they take like a mouse and they put it in a big container with an oxygen sensor. If you have a mouse in a closed container with an oxygen sensor in there, what should happen to the amount of oxygen in the container across time? It should go down, right? Because the mouse is using oxygen to do what? The respiration. So let's say you measure how much the amount of oxygen changed over time. Let's say for 5 minutes. Take the mouse out, get a new container, same size, put in a frog, same size frog, same oxygen sensor. What happens? Frog versus mouse. The oxygen still drops in the frog's container, right? But it drops out. Much more slower because ectotherms, like frogs, have a much slower rate of metabolism than endotherms do. They don't need as much oxygen because they're not burning as much what? Food, sugar. They don't do respiration as fast. Right. So let's look at question 5. Go ahead and take a stab at this one. We kind of talked about this one in the first session. What's our answer on 5? C, right? Antagonistic means they do opposite things. Insulin and glucagon push blood sugar in opposite directions, but always pushing it which way? Toward the set point, toward homeostasis. All right, let's go ahead and look at question 6 as well. Let's give that one a try. Read these choices pretty closely. All right, what do you guys say on 6? Here you go. Okay, here's some A's. Anything else? C looks good to me. Okay? You look at C, remember glucagon's job is to do what? Raise blood glucose. So when blood glucose levels are low, the pancreas releases more glucagon. Well, as more glucagon is released, what starts happening to the blood glucose levels? They start going up. And eventually they get back to where? Where they're supposed to be, set point. So what does that tell the pancreas? Stop making glucagon because we're where I'm supposed to be. We don't want to overshoot. And that's what C is telling us. C looks good. All right, back to this for a second. Just we saw this in the last section, but let's remind ourselves about the way this works. We've got that figure 8 set up. Here's our set point. We've got a stimulus, in which, in this case, blood glucose levels have dropped. We've got receptors in the pancreas and in the hypothalamus that notice, hey, blood glucose is too low. That causes it to release glucagon in the pancreas. Glucagon binds to receptors on the effector, which in this case is the liver, telling the liver to break down what? What does the liver need to break down? Glycogen, polysaccharide, and release glucose. Thereby, the response is raising the glucose levels back to where they're supposed to be. And remember, insulin does pretty much the opposite. Here's another example of a negative feedback loop. This is for calcium ions. So let's say that the amount of calcium in your blood falls. So calcium ion levels fall. They go away from the set point. Your thyroid gland and your parathyroids. Pick that up. There are receptors there. Your parathyroid hormone is going to release, in this case, a hormone called PTH, parathyroid hormone. That's going to go out to the effectors, which in this case are cells called osteoclast. What's osteo mean? It's bone. These are cells that actually break down bone. Well, what's bone made out of? Calcium. So if your bones start being broken down, what goes up in your blood? Calcium. And so the blood levels go up, and they go up back to the set point. This is one of the reasons why it's really important for who to get plenty of calcium. Well, how about pregnant mothers? Because if the pregnant mother doesn't have enough